Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tribal Council podcast, where on this podcast, Survivor represents our life, and when it gets canceled, so do we. Um, my name is Ethan Kronk. I'm joined with my girlfriend, Jessica Schroeder, and my good friend, Connor Boudreau. How are you guys doing tonight?
Heyo. Tired,
Tired,
but
yes.
overall okay.
Um,
So we're live and feeling live, so let's get it going.
Yeah, so we're gonna do the same thing as last episode, going through the different players in order of how likely I personally think they are to win at this point in the season, which means that we will be starting out with the 17th place finisher of Survivor 49, Annie Davis. I think I started off with Nicole last episode, so if one of you two wants to start off with Annie.
Yeah, I can take it away here, Ethan. Honestly, Annie had some fun moments. She seemed like she could have been a fun character, but in all honesty, the game of Survivor, the strategy behind it, and the real social components seem to evade her. Self-awareness not very
Yeah.
present, so some clear flaws.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I think also just her natural personality wasn't right for the tribe that she was on, I guess would be the nicest way to put it in the end.
Ultimately, I think that she sort of shot herself in the foot quite a few times. I think that going to Sophie in episode 1 and talking about trying to take out the men was a pretty bad idea on her part. I think that, just a lot of things about this episode. I feel like she could have done a little bit more. Even if she did manage to, get saved, it only would have been sort of credited to Alex. So, at the end of the day, she was just expendable to her tribe, and as much as Alex maybe tried to work with her, she just wasn't that great of a person to have as an ally, so her fate in this game was sort of inevitable. Now that brings us to my 16th and 15th place players, and I'm just going to get both of them out of the way. So in 16th place, I have Jason Truel. And in 15th place, I have Christina Mills. Basically, both of them got 0 confessionals this episode. That's usually a death nail for an edit in terms of someone's chances of winning. And because they got 0 confessionals this episode, there isn't really much to talk about with either of them. I don't know if either of you have anything to say about Jason or Christina, but
Yeah, no, they weren't super present in the episode.
yeah, no, they weren't.
Project M on Survivor cool moments are unfortunately not going to be long-term moments.
Yeah,
It's not enough to keep them on the screen.
I mean, either one of them could go very far. Like, it's happened where people get skunked and they still manage to go far, but the odds of either of them winning is pretty low at this point. Um, I mean, especially considering neither of them got a ton of content in episode 1. Um, but moving on to my number 14, I have Sage Aarons Nichols. Sage currently has 2 total confessionals over 2 episodes, meaning that, by my standard, for a 90-minute episode era, she is currently being purpled. That could change. Um, I like Sage a lot. I like her personality. I think she's fun. I think she's um, an interesting character. And that's exactly why her getting so few confessionals puts her this low on the list, because you would expect um, a more eccentric personality to get a lot of content. And the fact that she isn't, it's sort of reminding me of Sifu from season 45. He was a very strong personality. He was somebody who you'd expect to get a decent amount of screen time, but he was pretty low visibility for the first portion of the game, and it ultimately ended in a pretty middling finish for him, and that's kind of what I predict for Sage as well. So she didn't bring up poop this episode, so that gives us a lot less to talk about.
She
You
did bring
guys,
up her control over her bladder, though. So
did she again? I don't remember this.
yeah, no, I thought she when the boat was coming for the thing, she made a comment about how she can't control, like she pees herself when she gets excited and stuff. She can't control her bladder, and she had to run
Yeah,
away
when
to go
the
pee before the boat got there.
yeah, when the journey boat shows up, she's like, "Guys, I'm gonna pee myself."
Yeah, okay. When the journey boat pulled up, I was in the kitchen, so I missed that. That's 2 episodes in a row that she's specifically brought up that she can't control her bladder when she's excited. Um, I don't know what that says about her edit. The edge community hasn't really uh discussed pee and how that
I
affects
uh
her edit.
I I don't know. I hope it doesn't dehydrate her. I don't know. Think about it.
You don't have to try and make up something for someone when there isn't really something to talk about. She's
Yeah.
just unfortunately not very relevant yet.
Yeah.
I do want to see more of her. Like I do really like her. And I want her to go far, but as of right now, I'm just getting the vibe that she's going to be kind of like a silly background character in a way.
How much how much how much urine content does the average Survivor winner get? This is something that the community needs to look into.
Maybe she is cooking up the secret recipe for a Survivor win. Her own unique recipe, and it requires multiple mentions about, like, bathroom activities.
Yeah,
She's cooking, let her cook.
I'll let her cook. Moving on to number 14. We have a player who's moved up quite a bit, but mostly due to other players moving down. We have Sophie Segretti, who only got one confessional this episode compared to her two last episode, but I actually remember her confessional from this episode. I actually could tell you what it was about. Um, Basically, she was mad because Matt brought up potentially voting her out, and that was the confessional. Um, which is more than I can say about her last episode. And technically, by New Era standards, she isn't being purpled as she has 3 confessionals over 2 episodes. But yeah, I mean, Sophie still just isn't that major of a character, really. I mean, she's maybe being targeted on her tribe by Matt, and that's kind of all we really know about her. She may be close with MC. I don't know. There's not much else to say. Um, do either of you have an
Yeah,
opinion on Sophie?
no.
Yeah, she's kind of unfortunately just there.
Yeah. Um. All right. At number 13, I have MC. Um. MC currently has 3 confessionals over 2 episodes, the same amount as Sophie. And really, I mean, I'll let one of you guys actually talk about MC.
Biggest thing that I'll say for MC, when you look at the kind of content that was shown this episode compared to last episode, it's a big step in the right direction. It doesn't really change the fact that the content's still very limited, and it was, I mean, a small amount of, like, in perspective of like how much other content was still shown from other people on her tribe this episode. I mean, Matt still got a ton of screen time, and some of MC's content was surrounding Matt. So, it isn't that big of a change or that big of promise for, her chances of winning, but it's at least promised that she might be a more relevant character than she appeared in the first episode.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to talk,
No, you
Ethan?
can go. I've already said my piece.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say I like she was more notable in the episode in comparison to last for me, but a lot of her content, yeah, was mostly centered around other people. It just didn't really give a like I don't know. There wasn't an individualistic part of her edit this episode or anything, and it just didn't give a good vibe.
I agree. Which is why I have her at number 13. And at number 12, yet again, I have Jawan Pitts. Um, See, the funny thing about Jawan is I initially thought about moving him down, but like halfway through the episode, that's sort of what I was thinking. And then I kind of thought about potentially moving him up after the journey because he's introduced at the beginning of the journey as, clear underdog. He talks about how he's up against these two big guys. Jake gets a confessional talking about how, he's happy to have Jawan on his basket because he thinks that, he's got a good shot over Jawan. And then Jawan ends up winning the challenge. And I think that's a great look for Jawan. Unfortunately, when you also have content where you're off looking for idols and everybody on your tribe is sussing you out, or where you're using somebody else's bag to carry sticks, um, and you're sort of portrayed as being inconsiderate. I can't justify moving him up either. So he kind of just ended up staying where he is. He's got 10 confessionals over 2 episodes, which is nothing to scoff at. But he's just gotten a lot of negative content.
Hmm. Yeah. And I just don't know how I personally feel about him.
Yeah, I think he's a likable.
But again, sorry.
I think he's a likable player, but
I think he's a likable player. I think the edit is just making me think that he's inconsiderate and stuff, and it's making me not like him as much.
yeah, that's fair. Do you have anything to say about Jawan, Connor?
Yeah. While we're in the ballpark of comparing players to others, you mentioned um earlier that you felt that there was kind of a Sifu edit going on. I see something kind of similar here. We could be getting something, a couple of semi-recent players have gotten edits where they get a ton of content, but they aren't really seen as this like super strategic and they seem completely out of place type of players. Not quite to the same extent as some of those previous players, but like there are some notable ones like an Andy, for example, who clearly doesn't have the survivor gameplay, long term planned out in a way that's going to bring him to the end to win. However, still goes really far because the character of Andy, the personality that he displays, is still very interesting. So I could see something in a similar, lesser realm, but a similar realm going on for Jawan, where he becomes a very interesting personality throughout the season and gives us lots of reason to show him on screen, not necessarily to win, though.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. And not necessarily in a positive light overall, but I mean, he could also get some sort of, I don't want to say redemption because that makes it seem like he's like a bad guy, but like maybe a growth edit of sorts. Um,
Yeah, that's definitely something we could be due for, depending on how things continue to play out.
yeah. Moving on to number 10. Again, I have Jake Latimer. Um, Jake, I want to talk about Jake on the journey mainly. I think it was a pretty bad look for him, the fact that he was sort of portrayed as it being overconfident. Um, he was, again, like I said with Jawan, he was talking about how he was happy to have Jawan on his basket. He thinks that he's got this in the bag, and then he ends up losing. And it's like, that's not a great look for him. Um, Overall, I think he's being set up for, a pretty big downfall, but he's still a major character, so it's kind of hard to say. Um, what
Yeah, oh, sorry, I thought you were done.
It's kind of hard to say what trajectory he might go down. Sorry, that's all I had to say.
Sorry, I since you had such a long pause there, I thought that you were done.
It's okay.
Um, in my personal opinion, like I think I just don't like Jake, but everything has been a bad look for him. Everything that he's done. I just I just don't like him. I don't know. Like the forced bromance is a bad look for him in my eyes, just because I find it cringy maybe. But the like whole shoe bandit thing, I feel like is also a bad look for him because it's definitely gonna get him in shit down the road. I feel like he's gonna take it a little bit too far. He's definitely the type to.
With Jake that we can talk about actually is in the next time on Survivor. He gets bit by a venomous snake, and Alex says, "I'm actually worried for his life at this point." So I don't want to speculate too much what might happen in the next episode. But like, could we see a Jake medevac next episode? And like, how would that affect the season? Um, I don't know if you have an opinion on that, Connor.
I mean, it would definitely put him in an interesting conversation of players that show some signs of potential interest in terms of how a player could be likable and then being medevaced fairly early. Those players do tend to have some interesting survivor arcs over the years and isn't necessarily mean we're due for another one, but it definitely has some interesting outcomes if that is the case. That might be more interesting than what we could have expected from Jake in this game. Unfortunately, he's not really in a great position to be a super successful player so far through 2 episodes, and might be more interesting in a, second opportunity, given the experience of, a handful of days on Survivor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's really a question of like, would they bring back some guy who was medevaced pre-merge? I mean, it's happened, obviously. I know you're currently watching Survivor
I say
Philippines, but
also right in the new era, we have had this happen once already. So
yeah,
maybe it's something they're trying to precedent. Maybe
I,
it's something that it was just a one-time exception.
I mean,
But
that was
but
that. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, but Ethan, why wouldn't they bring him back? He's the shoe bandit, and he had
oh,
that whole romance. Why wouldn't
oh
they?
yeah, right. The shoe bandit. The thing with Bruce is he was medevaced on day one. Like that's why they brought him back because nobody else I don't think has ever been medevaced on day one. So at this point, it would be a little bit late for Jake to get medevaced and be brought back on a non-returnee season. So it would either have to be some sort of like twist, like on Philippines, where they specifically bring back a few medevac players, or it would have to be a returnee season, and they would have to choose him over someone who wasn't medically evacuated in episode 3. But I guess I don't know. We can talk a lot more about this on the next episode of the podcast if he does actually get medically evacuated. Um, I just think that's crazy that like I mean, venomous snakes are no joke.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm definitely curious to see what happens. They really know how to leave you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, it's got me excited for the next episode because if Jake gets medevaced, we could see technically a double elimination next episode. And I don't necessarily enjoy medevacs, but I do enjoy double eliminations. So could be fun. I th-
Ethan doesn't prey on anybody's downfall, but he does like a good time.
exactly. And I mean, he could get medically evacuated post challenge, and then that would suck because then we only get one elimination and it's a medevac. But
Yeah, that would be a little bit lame
yeah,
in a way.
yeah, it's
That feels
always
disrespectful. He gets medevaced for a venomous snake bite. That's lame.
lame. Boo.
What a bad ending to the shoe bandit that would be, huh?
Uh, if he does get medevaced, I hope that he tells people he's the shoe bandit. Like I hope he has this whole like bravado moment. He's like, I'm the shoe bandit. And everybody's just kind of like, oh, okay.
Also
No, I
unfortunate.
hope that's a wholesome moment. That would be a really cool wholesome moment. They'd be like, "Oh my god, this was actually kind of funny, man. We're gonna miss this."
We're gonna miss having our shoes stolen and hidden.
Look, I wholeheartedly believe he's gonna go too far with it one time and genuinely lose somebody's shoe, and that would piss me off.
Yeah, I
But
feel like
funny moment.
it could be lame too after like two shoes have been hidden and he gets medically evacuated and he's like, it was me. It's like it would be more funny after like, a handful of shoes have been stolen and not just a couple.
Yeah.
But yeah. Um at number 9, I have Matt Williams. And Matt, I mean, he's really suffering from being on Hina Tribe. After 2 episodes, it's becoming pretty clear that the winner, more likely than not, isn't coming from Hina. So I don't think that anyone on Hina has a great chance, but if anyone does, it's going to be either Matt or Steven. And at this
Mhm.
point, I mean, Matt has the most confessionals on that tribe now after episode 2. A lot of the content on the tribe as a whole surrounds him. Like last episode, it all kind of surrounded Steven, but even then, Matt had the most content with Steven. So I do feel like he's a pretty prominent character on his tribe, but unfortunately, he just comes from a tribe that doesn't really scream that the winner is on it.
Yeah. Which is a real shame because I quite like Matt. I liked his little trick with the fire in this episode.
Yeah. Um, I might have missed that trick. What was the trick with the fire?
When he was starting the fire, I don't know what he lit on fire, but he lit something on fire that almost was like paper. It was very flimsy and stuff, and he started the fire on one end of it, and it almost kind of looked like he flicked whatever it was up in a way, and the fire spread across the entire like material that he was holding really quickly, and it was really pretty. It almost looked like fire bending.
So we have a firebender on the cast. That's
I know. You can't let him get to fire making.
yeah, no. I think you would lose to Iro over here if you took him into
Yeah.
fire making with you. What do you think, Connor? What do you think of Matt Williams? Gabler
I
2.0.
think we I think we could be in for a situation with what kind of happens to the yellow tribe of season 45 minus all the eliminations where they just kind of go in and there's only really one or two important players. They kind of get, the rest of the tribe kind of gets picked off, and I could very well see a situation where it's almost a reverse of that in the sense that there's all of these people and yet there's a lot of insignificant Hina players, and I feel like maybe he's one of the important players from the tribe, but just unfortunately suffers from being in a bad tribe in the sense of just not really being complex or important for this season.
Yeah, a lot of parallels I'm seeing between this season and season 45, which is unfortunately a season that Jessica has not seen. But it gets brought up a
Sorry.
lot talking about this one. And I mean, on top of that, like, I mean, we have someone on the Red Tribe who seems like a big character but is getting very little to no screen time. We have a guy named Jake on the Blue Tribe. Those are two
I
more
can cover my
parallels.
ears.
La 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 la.
I'm being serious. If you want to talk about it, you can.
No, those are just two things I wanted to bring up. They were just silly little comparisons to 45 because it's come up a few times. Um,
Okay.
and I mean it's a red, blue, yellow season, so kind of interesting. Um, moving on to number 8, I have Stephen Ram. Quite the massive drop, mostly due to the fact that I think it's been made pretty clear that Hina is the non-complex tribe. Matt or Steven, sorry, didn't actually get a lot of content in episode 2, so I mean, he could get more in episode 3 and that could move him up a little bit. But it's just maybe the premiere was kind of a fluke for him. It's hard to say for sure, but Matt's getting more consistent content really than Steven. I only have Steven higher because of his incredibly strong premiere, but he could drop below Matt. He could drop below a few people on this list depending on how episode 3 goes. Other than that, I don't know if there's much to talk about in terms of Matt. Or
Sorry,
sorry,
can we pause?
Steven. Pause. Is there anything else to say about Steven?
Um, I don't know. I One thing I want to say is that he has twink energy.
Mm,
Yeah,
more of a
yeah,
twunk.
more of a twang. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know. That's my only comment, and my only other comment is I do like Steven, but I don't like. Yeah, I don't really have much to comment on him about this episode specifically.
Yeah, didn't really do much this episode. So, um, we can move on to my number 10, 9, 8, 7. My number 7, Shannon Fairweather. Honestly, Shannon, she got 2 confessionals. I vaguely remember one of them. I don't quite remember exactly what she said in either of them. Um, she's part of that 4-person alliance between herself, Nate, Savannah, and Rizzo. She isn't by any means the main narrator of that alliance, which is why I have her a little bit lower than any of the other players that are in that alliance. In fact, for me, a big negative is the fact that we don't ever hear her actually talk about her opinions on that specific alliance, um, unless I missed it. But she is part of it, and that's something going for her.
It is something.
I'll
Connor,
even go so far as to say this. I think how little she gets to discuss about her position in the game and her just constantly being shown as this like kind of carefree, like very spiritual person, but doesn't get a chance to really dive into gameplay discussion at any point. I would go so far as to say that I think she could have been lowered on this list. I would contest that she's probably not really this high up, and that's kind of where I'd sit on it.
Yeah, I just can't really justify putting her below any of the people that I have further down on this list, considering they're either on Hina Tribe, which is looking really bad, or they're skunked in some way, or they have a lot of negative content. Whereas, like, she's kind of in this tier of people who is getting enough content, is on the right tribe, isn't really getting anything overly negative, and seems to be in a good position in the game. Which I can't say all of that about any of the players that I have below her on this list, but I also can't really say that she's getting the quality of content of anyone that I have higher than her on this list. So that's sort of why she ended up where she is. But
well, I think that she looks like the actor that plays Jimmy Olsen in the new Superman movie. That is my thought on the matter.
I see it. I kind of see it. There's
Yeah.
definitely a certain something there.
She has more freckles, but every time I see her, it's just like the actor pops in my head, and I'm having a hard time remembering some of the things that she said simply because I couldn't get it out of my head how much she looks like the actor in my head.
Tyler Gisondo. Gisondo? Ah, fuck, I don't know. Yeah, I can see it a little bit, kind of. Um,
Makes it sound like you doubt me.
yeah, I doubt your ability um, to tell how much people do or do not look like Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Apparently she competed for Miss Massachusetts. I'm just seeing this now. I don't think she won, but that's interesting. Number 6, I have, say it with me, the man, the myth, the legend, Rizgod, Riz God, baby. And we actually didn't get that much content from the Riz God this episode. Um,
Oh no.
he's still tied for second in total confessionals. Um, I believe. Nope, tied for third in total confessionals. Um, and he's the only person who is not on the blue tribe. Uh, sorry, he is. I just had a "you're the youngest person ever" moment. Um, he is. He has the most confessionals out of anyone who is not on the blue tribe. Is what I meant to say. Um,
Yeah, I was gonna say I think there's more than just one person not on the blue chart.
uh, honestly, he's another one who could be lowered potentially, only because, again, just like Shannon, he's part of this 4-person alliance, but we hear nothing from him in terms of what he thinks or feels about this alliance, and I'm sure we'll hear something when it becomes more relevant to his game, but I just don't feel like that's a great sign. But I mean, I have him at 6 because obviously he's a major character. Um, obviously he's like a rootable player, and he's gotten a decent amount of content without being overpowering. So it's a solid edit, but there's that major gripe that I have with it that keeps him out of the top 5 for me.
Hmm.
But I don't really know like what he did this episode other than say that, actually, you know what, did he not say that the alliance was cinema or something?
He
Yeah,
did,
I think
and
that was a
used
little
a lot
montage.
of like words that were described by Nate as things he has never ever said in his life.
Yeah. um yeah, I mean, everyone on that tribe, they were talking about the vibes, they were talking about Riz. Oh, that's the thing. He was like, I think he was explaining to his tribe that he doesn't associate
Has Riz.
himself with the word Riz. He's like, no, he's like, I'm not saying I have Riz. And then who was it? I think it was Sage who was like, you do though, you
Hey,
do have Riz.
yes.
Yeah, I really like Sage.
Actually, you know what? That's a good topic of conversation. Do you guys think that the Riz God has Riz?
I haven't seen him in action, so no
Hmm.
comment.
How many Huz do you
Uh,
think he'll pull
uh,
on Survivor?
3. I don't know.
3?
3 Huz on Survivor is crazy.
That would be a world record. He'd have. I mean, he'd
Well,
earn the title of Riz
if
God right there.
okay, everybody, if he pulls 3 HUDs on Survivor, I'll give both of you $20.
You know how many Huz? You know how many Huz I think he'll pull on Survivor?
How many?
I mean, it's a rough estimate, like somewhere around maybe 6, 7.
6, 7.
So,
Oh my lord, that was delayed comedic moment right there. For reference, in case this stays in, Jessica did just leave the call temporarily.
Yeah, you guys are disappointing and bad and pathetic.
okay. Well, we mentioned him not too long ago. My number 5 player, I have Nate Moore. Um, Nate Moore does not know what HUDs are, probably.
Probably doesn't know 6, 7 either.
Probably not. He might know what Riz is. So, that's something. Nate got a good amount. I mean, I feel like he got a good amount of content. He only got one confessional, but it was, from my memory, a pretty long one.
Mm-hmm.
He got a lot of non-confessional content as well. Him and Savannah really have gotten the most content surrounding this 4-person alliance that they're forming. And that's a great look for Nate. It's also a great look for Savannah. We'll talk about her later. But overall, one confessional this episode isn't mind-blowing by any means, obviously. He's just gotten some really solid content. We've gotten to know him pretty well. We see that he's sort of an adaptable player. Like, he is on this tribe of people who have different lingo than what he's used to. He's not really used to describing the vibes and everything, but he's adapting pretty well and socializing well with the people he's on his tribe with, despite the fact that he is a certified unk, so to speak. What do you guys think of Nate Moore?
Gonna really show some comparisons to a much older player, and I mean that both in the sense of when they played and their age at the time of playing, but I feel like he could be the new Rudy. All the way back to the very beginning of Survivor, we saw this guy who knew, man, these young kids, I don't, fit in with their lingo and the way they carry themselves, but I'm going to try my best to fit in. And I see a lot of that in the gameplay here of Nate, and it's definitely going to be a very important part of his game, to seeing how well he can fit in and just continue to keep himself in the conversations of the tribe and the alliance.
Yeah. Well, talking about Rudy, he has one of my favorite quotes from season 1. I mean, he has a lot of my favorite quotes from season 1. But, he says, there's more of them than there are of me. They don't have to adapt to me, I have to adapt to them. Something along those lines. I might be paraphrasing slightly. But I think that's a very good mentality to have on Survivor, when you know that you're sort of different in some way to your competitors. Like, definitely be yourself and, like, embrace what makes you different from them. But also, you really have to adapt when you know that everyone else, for example, is in this younger age group and you're significantly older than the rest of your tribe. You need to be able to adapt. You need to be able to meet them at their level, because they can't all be expected to meet you at yours. Or even if they could, this is a game, and you have to do what you have to do, even if it feels unfair. And I think Nate understands that.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. I don't really know how to put this. Adapting to like somebody else shows, I don't know, acceptance in a way, and it shows that he wants to interact with them and build these bonds with the people in his tribe and everything. And I just think it's a very good look for him socially, even if everybody isn't like, hey, that guy's picking up on all this new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it probably, everybody seeing him sit there and listen and try to understand probably makes them feel better about him too overall.
Yeah, and I think everybody likes Nate quite a bit on his tribe. I mean, he's in that alliance of 4. We know Jawan seems to like him. There hasn't really been much content in terms of how Sage feels about Nate, but I feel like Sage is someone who is pretty quick to like people, so I highly doubt that she doesn't like Nate.
I feel like she's also the type to be vocal when she doesn't like somebody, but that's just a guess.
Yeah, it's
as of right.
speculation, but I agree. I think I could see that for sure. Yeah, I think Nate's gonna do pretty well. I don't know that he's necessarily gonna win, but I do have him in my top 5 for a reason. And with that, number 4, I have Jeremiah Ng. I think I've started a lot of these people actually, so maybe one of you has something to say about Jeremiah.
I definitely think the strategic gameplay that Jeremiah is playing shows a lot of promise. I think the way that he is thinking about the game in terms of the numbers and trying to think ahead in terms of strategy definitely shows some ability to make the right decisions and to go over the possibilities from what we get to see. I also think that given that he was one of the lower numbers of confessionals, it definitely does have a small hindrance on my ability to think he'll win, but it could also be them trying to showcase, some of the other players from the tribe when they know Jeremiah will still be sitting there at the end with plenty of time to deliver plenty of good strategic, social, and just very good awareness for confessionals to come. So I see the upside a lot in what they present of Jeremiah, and it's overtly good content in terms of it being productive for his game and just as well interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Jeremiah, he shows good like game awareness in the sense that he's sort of instantly able to tell that he's maybe on the bottom of this 4-person alliance, which does spell some danger for him considering the fact that that 4-person alliance is all that remains of his tribe. But he's aware, he has sort of a game plan. He might not be getting the most content on the tribe, but the content that he gets is always very memorable. And the confessionals that he gets, he always makes them count. And I mean, seeing him like eating the worms near the beginning of the episode, like that's not something that they had to include by any means. That's not something that was relevant to the episode, but they put it in, and that's something you have to look at when you're looking at a winner, or a potential winner, is that they'll a lot of the times get content that could be seen as sort of unnecessary or fluff because we want to get to know them better as players. And like what we kind of get to know about Jeremiah is that he is willing to do anything, right? You don't see a lot of people on Survivor, eating like 5 worms, back to back. Like he I think is going to play hard. I think he's going to be a very entertaining character, and I think he has a pretty decent shot at winning. So, do you have anything to say about Jeremiah, Jessica?
Well, I think the worm scene really shows his determination in this game, and at what you were saying, what he's willing to do. I think it is kind of maybe not necessarily foreshadowing, but something similar to things that he's going to do further on in the game. I feel like he's gonna persevere.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it was an important clip in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Basically what you were saying.
He's a survivor.
I'm a survivor.
She's still going.
Anyway.
Thank you. I appreciate the performance. Um,
You're welcome.
that brings me to number 3, someone who dropped slightly after this episode, somewhat surprisingly, but also not really. I have Alex Moore. Um, and I mainly dropped him by one spot, mostly just because he has 21 confessionals, and that's a lot. The winner
Oh,
usually isn't overexposed, and having the most confessionals by 6 this early on could mean that he's going to be a massive character who ends up going late into the game. Maybe he is sort of a dragon that needs to be taken out by the eventual winner. He does have an idol, which is cool. Um, he was sort of portrayed as the main decision maker this episode, and I'm curious to see how that's portrayed. Like, it's really gonna affect my rankings a lot if it's portrayed as, oh, he should have taken the shot at Sophie, because obviously that was something he was considering, and obviously that was something that he did not end up doing. But yeah, I still have him fairly high because he's sort of been almost the main character of the season so far, and it's hard not to have him decently high for that, but it's hard to have him at the top when he feels almost overexposed, potentially. So that's sort of where my mind is at with Alex. What about you, Connor? What do you have to say about Alex?
I think very similarly in the fact that we see so much content of him that it makes me think, huh, are we really going to watch this guy have all of this content right off the start and still win the game? Because what else do they get to show, especially, down the line when we're only being shown pretty important content towards the game right now and not a lot in comparison to some other players that we'll get to and then ones we previously discussed about their just personality in general. So if it being a very much more, you know, game focused set of content, I almost think it's maybe the potential like fake winner, someone they're trying to show as like, oh, this guy, he's the favorite, he's the front runner, he's this strategic player that ultimately does get cut by, someone who potentially does win the game.
Yeah,
And that very much is something I could see happening is he is like, the top dog that is beat to win.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think that that's
yeah, I also
likely,
agree.
probably the most likely ending for Alex. What about you, Jessica? Do you have anything to add for Alex?
Not necessarily, no. I pretty well agree with both of you. I uh I feel like he's kind of being set up to be a fan favorite or like the one to root for in the season.
Also, one thing that I want to note is that while we were talking about Alex, I turned 21.
Uh, Yeah. Happy birthday. I
And
was distracted with something that I was making. I noticed too late. Happy birthday.
thank you. Yeah, so I'm a different age now than I was when we started talking about Alex, which I think is
Well,
fun.
actually, we need to know specifically what time you were born at. And I'm not asking for any reasons related to witchcraft. What
Okay,
time were you born?
I don't know, around midnight, I think. I think I was more like,
I
yeah,
don't-
like pretty late at night, so probably it's probably safe to say that I'm pretty much 21 years old.
You fool. You fool.
Okay, I'm gonna ignore that. And move on to number 2. Uh, um,
Anyway,
at number 2, I have Savannah Louie. Um, yeah, I mean
like
Savannah,
Papa.
like just like Papa
Sorry,
Louie.
I thought that last time. I just didn't say it.
I'm glad you said it this time. Um, Savannah has gotten the most consistent content on the Red Tribe aside from Jawan, but we've talked about Jawan. And I feel great about Savannah. I mean, we get to hear her perspective on pretty much every single thing that happens on Red Tribe, the Alliance. We get to hear her perspective on Shannon and her eccentricities. We get to hear a lot about her opinion on Juan, especially in this episode. And
Mhm.
that's always a good sign when you get to hear a lot about somebody's opinion, and we get to hear a pretty good amount about her background and her game plan, and it's a lot to get for somebody who hasn't been to tribal council yet. So I think she's definitely a player to look out for. I think she's definitely got a really, really good chance of winning. Um, I mean, really, like her and the person I have at number one are somewhat interchangeable, but uh, just due to the premiere, I decided to put her at number two.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like Savannah has a really good head on her shoulders, and like honestly, if I hated bugs and somebody used my bag to collect sticks, why are you first of all, why are you using somebody else's bag to collect sticks? Second of all, I would have been livid. So I applaud her. Wait, am I thinking of the right person?
Yes.
This is okay. I thought that I got people mixed up. Yeah, no, I applaud her for being as like, because if I remember correctly, she was relatively calm about the whole matter.
Yeah. Yeah, relatively. I mean, yeah, it's a tough situation. I think he did it by accident. I think he meant to grab his own bag, but he was still being careless from my perspective, and
Yeah.
it I mean, it's probably going to cost him. Like I don't know. We'll see. If Red goes to tribal though, Jawan's definitely going to be in trouble. What about you, Connor? Anything to say about Savannah?
I mean, there's a lot to add about Savannah in terms of, I mean, she's just one of the more complex players of the season. She's got a ton of content, and we talked about a lot of relationships she has with a lot of different people in this season. Um, the one that definitely interests me is the two people with the most content on that tribe are Savannah and Rizzo. And I'm surprised we have seen such a minuscule amount of important interaction between the two of them, because it's fair to assume, okay, they've had the most content, they probably work together down the line, but it's interesting how little we've got of it so far.
We know they're in an
So
alliance
I think
together,
that's,
but that's about it.
yeah, but so far we have not much else to talk about with that alliance in terms of their relationship with it and their personal opinions to it. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on, I think.
hmm maybe they end up being rivals down the line. Um, yeah. Uh, well, I think we can move on to my number one pick, which yet again is Sophie Bellerti. I think so.
Ooh.
I think the one major thing that I want to point out with Sophie is the fact that she was portrayed as being potentially a target this episode, someone who was potentially in trouble, but ultimately Annie went home in a unanimous vote. And that's sort of a trend with new era winners where they'll get some content early on where it's like, oh, this person could be in trouble, this person might get voted out, and then nothing really comes of it. And that was something that was really like I mean, technically Annie gets the same thing in episode 18, but she also gets a lot of negative content setting her up to eventually fall, whereas Sophie doesn't actually get that much negative content. It's mostly just people targeting her because she's close to Jake and they want to split that duo up. Now, if Jake gets medically evacuated next episode, that might open up the game for Sophie in a way. But all in all, it's I just think she's gotten a lot of solid content. She obviously had a very solid premiere. She hasn't really lost any steam. And we know kind of everything about her relationships on the cast, her opinions on all of the goings on the Blue Tribe. I think her trying to hide the box from Alex was pretty interesting, and I don't think like it doesn't really get dunked on when he ends up finding it. It's just kind of like, oh, that's unfortunate, but it's the type of content that's like could have been more negative than it was, and I think that's pretty promising for her.
Yeah, you kind of only got like you only really got a bummed out feeling when they found it with the way that it was portrayed, and not a like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, doesn't she even get a confessional after where she says, "Man, this isn't what I was hoping for. I'm gonna have to keep this in my mind now that this idol does exist, and Alex has it, not me."
Hmm.
Hmm.
So she even gets to talk about this moment after. So it really shows that, okay, things aren't going her way, but we still get to hear her react and her figure things out as a, follow up to this.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I think I feel pretty solid about her being in my number one spot, but at the end of the day, it's very early to tell for sure who might win, so it's a lot of guesswork at this point in the game.
Yep.
Mm. But yeah, that's sort of everyone that we have to talk about. The only other thing that we could really talk about is the challenge because yikes. Um,
Yeah. Yikes is right.
I mean, yellow was stuck with a pretty significant disadvantage. Um, blue started off with a pretty significant lead, and yet they just completely fumble it at the end at the puzzle. And I'm beginning to think that not a single person on that tribe has any idea whatsoever how to do a puzzle because that was embarrassing.
Very embarrassing.
Um,
Definitely not a strong showing that one of them goes on a big challenge run at the end, and very much showcases a lack of puzzle ability for the group as a whole, but it definitely could make a big impact on the individual game further down the line too as a result. Because I
yeah.
mean, how much are you going to be worried about someone on that tribe going on a big run when they can't solve a basic puzzle, as a unit?
Hmm. Yeah,
So
it's really rough, honestly. Like, I don't know how like we're gonna have to see maybe a challenge without a puzzle that they can maybe win and not have to go back to travel again. Because if they get whittled down to like two members, I mean, that's gonna be rough. But it would give us more parallels to season 45. So
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong here. Have we seen a new era tribe get down to one? Is that a realistic possibility we could explore with this season if things keep looking this poorly for blue in challenges with the possibility of puzzles being in part of every challenge?
I think the general rule in the new era is that if a tribe gets whittled down to like three um by like episode 4, we'll get some sort of tribe swap. Um, so no, because like I think that's something like that they have sort of set as part of the format at this point. Because both times that it's happened, season 45 and season 48, those are the two times in the new era that we've gotten a tribe swap. So if another player from Blue goes next episode, my thought is that we will probably get a tribe swap in episode 4.
Yeah.
So
It would be interesting though if we did get to see a small number tribe again. It's been a while, but definitely something that if they don't give us a swap situation and they do just say, "Oh, there's two of them, tough. They can figure it out." We could genuinely see that happen, I think.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say is that if that did happen, actually, I'm not going to get into that. Never mind. Um, but yeah. I mean, it's we'll see. We'll see what happens. They're definitely a disastrous enough tribe that, assuming there isn't a tribe swap, it could definitely happen. But you know, that remains to be seen. Anywho, I think that just about does it for this episode of the Travel Council podcast. We're going to be doing this again next week, so stay tuned. I'm definitely excited to see what episode 3 has in store for us. But for
Mhm.
now, I will be thinking a lot about the events of episode 2, because it was a pretty good episode. That being said, the pod has spoken.